So today I'm pleased to have Josh Lenthal on from Active Oxfordshire. Active Oxfordshire is formerly known as OxSPA. They collaborate with partners across the county to promote physical activity in Oxfordshire. Josh, how are you today?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to share your story with us. It'd be great if you could start off with just telling us a bit more around what it is that Active Oxfordshire does and what sort of services it provides.
Yeah, sure. So Active Oxfordshire is a charity by legal entity. We're what's called an active partnership, and we're part of a national network of active partnerships. So there's 43 around the country, usually following roughly a county footprint, although in some of the bigger cities it covers more of the city footprint. And our role is twofold. I think one of those is to be quite strategic in nature, and one of the other functions of an active partnership is to be a broker. So in more layman's terms, I suppose, we're not going out personal training people or delivering football sessions. Our role is to be a little bit more in the background, I guess you could say, from the end user of physical activity, and trying to understand and remove some of the strategic obstacles that reduce activity. And then as a broker, we're able to bring people together around that cause, demonstrate where physical activity can help other elements of society and other people's purpose as well. So we're much more, like I say, strategic in nature than you wouldn't see our guys going out delivering football sessions of an evening or anything like that, unless they're doing it in their own time, of course.
Yeah, yeah. So give us some examples of actually what you sort of facilitate, what sort of things happen.
Yeah, sure. So we work with, for example, the NHS, trying to remove pressure, I suppose you could say, from frontline doctors and social care workers. And the way we do that is we're part of a collaboration who runs certain programs of work where instead of somebody perhaps being prescribed medication or something like that, they might actually be prescribed in a way physical activity. Or in a perfect world, they're already physically active, so they don't even need to be going to the doctors in the first place. So we sort of have a couple of flagship programs aimed at some of the most vulnerable people in Oxfordshire. The idea being is we're trying to prevent ill health through physical activity, or if somebody's already on that pathway, trying to turn that around through some simple movement in their day-to-day life. So you'd see some programs of work, and we're also working with policy makers to try and understand, okay, how if we work in a certain way within education or transport, we actually enable more activity to happen. So there's a little bit of an influencing element to that, and trying to change policy and strategy so that physical activity just becomes more normalized again.
So you're very much in that sort of strategic, longer term, bigger space thinking, as opposed to just organising a local.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. And how long has Active Oxford been sort of running for?
So in some way, shape, or form, they've gone through many iterations. So probably about 20 years of different iterations. But Active Oxfordshire, as is now, has been a charity for 7 years.
Okay.
So since about 2018, it'll be 7 years in August. So whilst there's been different iterations, because a lot of the funding comes from central government, and the sort of obviously then sort of with political wins sometimes a little bit, but actually in its current charitable status, 7 years.
I was reading on the LinkedIn page, the business page, that Oxford's actually got quite a low inactivity figure. Is that right?
Yeah, so we've got a real challenge where it's a county and a city of two halves, I suppose is the best way to describe it, where generally speaking, and it is generally speaking, if somebody's affluent and living in certain conditions, they're more likely to be active, but it links very well precisely to deprivation. So if somebody's facing financial hardship, their ability to be physically active is just massively reduced. So a lot of our work will target in certain parts of Oxford, certain parts of Banbury, and other pockets around the county where people are just getting a very different experience and much more obstacles.
Okay. Very good. And what got you into it? How did you? Because you're the CEO, and how long have you been CEO for?
So 2.5 years. So I've been at Active Oxfordshire for 8 years in total, and in this role for 2.5 years.
So what's your background then? What sort of got you into this side of things? And then
so I was always the sporty child, I suppose, typically through school, and then I studied sport development at university. Initially working as a coach, actually on a self-employed basis, and then gradually moving into more, I guess you'd say, into the strategic strategic role. So I suppose my journey is probably quite a typical one in that it's been sport throughout my life, my qualifications in sport and so on. But actually, I think now there's a necessity to have a much broader range of people in our team and across our network, because frankly, only probably about 1 in 5 people actually like sport and physical activity in the traditional way that they view it. So yeah, we need to diversify who's making those decisions.
Yeah. And as a business leader, so somebody that's running the organization, say turn a bit years as a CEO, what have been your biggest challenges over that period, would you say?
So there's been getting used to the fact that change is going to happen whether we like it or not, and actually pretty massive macro changes that sometimes we don't actually have any say over.
Okay.
So goes without saying that COVID-19 at that point blew a massive hole into the sort of fabric of everyday life. Sadly, then there's been the cost of living has a massive impact on people's ability to undertake physical activity. Again, very hard for us to have a direct control over that. So I suppose the biggest lesson in that has been we need a kind of a sense of direction of where we want to get to, but we might have to accept that it's not going to be a perfectly linear path along that way.
I think that's true of, just about every business, isn't it? In terms of having that clear vision in terms of where you want to get to. But the reality is it's not a straight line. There are going to be outside influences out of your control, and it's how you react to those influences as opposed to, being able to control them.
Working out as quickly, we learned quite early what is within our sphere of influence and control.
Yeah, control the controllables.
Yeah, and where putting the energy where you can actually put a dent in things in a positive way and make some impact, and accepting sometimes some things are going to be out of our control and we have to just be prepared for that.
And what sort of tactics do you employ to actually overcome those challenges and be ready for those changes?
Yes, so I think having a really, really clear, proactive, positive vision of where you would love to be in a perfect utopia world almost is the thing that everybody can agree on all of the time. And I think if you have that, you've always got something to hook to. Whatever's happening, you've always got something to hook to, and you can ask yourself, is what we're doing now going to get us closer to that or get us to that quicker? I think that's always something that's really important. And then almost having a set of working principles that again will cut through any change, disagreement, conflict, and actually you can almost draw back to when you need them sometimes, which kind of helps, especially when you're working across different parts of a county with different priorities. We're getting really good, I think, as a collective, of saying these are the principles that are going to be really important to us. So whatever happens, we can always fall back onto these, remind ourselves of them, and then we move forward again. So just having that up our sleeve helps when you get the unexpected changes or sometimes you'll get disagreement or change in direction that you can't affect, and actually just having those is useful.
So do you find those sort of things help you then make clearer decisions, more informed decisions? Is it in line with our goals, and is it in line with our cultural ethos?
Absolutely. Yeah, we put quite a lot in place at Active Oxfordshire around how do we make decisions, because the risk is that we say yes to everything, and actually I think we need to be more comfortable saying no, and that's not necessarily negative. It's a trade-off. If we say no to something, we can probably say yes to something else or something more impactful. So having a bit of a framework that you can almost run through and go, does it fit with our vision? Is it in one of our priority locations? Is it going to be more impactful than something we're already doing? Work through that. Is it exciting, frankly, for us to get involved in? And then it just gives you a bit of shape to that, so you don't just make knee-jerk decisions in the moment.
It's a good point. Like I say, it's having that clear sort of idea of what it is you're doing and how you're doing it allows you almost to say no to more things, so you can be more impactful in the things that you are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And in our brokering role, we're quite lucky. It's very rarely a flat no. It's no, it's not us. It's these people who will be better placed, or maybe not now, but in 12 months' time. Yeah, it's very rarely a flat computer says no moment, which is quite nice that we have that sort of ability.
It's a good way of psychological, because again, a lot of business owners I come talk with and stuff, they have that. There's always something to do. There's always something else that somebody else is doing. And like you say, if you end up trying to do everything, then you're not really effective in all of them. But I quite like that. No, it's not right for us now. It's that mindset. It's not a flat no. It's just not right now, or it's not us. It's someone else.
Yeah. And because we've got like a purpose and a cause, I suppose. It's being quite honest about can we make are we the best people to do that, honestly, you know, or is there somebody who might actually be better placed in that instance? It might be slightly different in a profit making sector, I suppose, but actually it's kind of asking ourselves, are we best placed, or is somebody else in a better position than us right now? And that's kind of, we try and be honest with that. Otherwise, as a charity, you end up you risk this chasing whatever pops up next to survive, and then you just end up nowhere, I think.
Yeah, very true. And what about team then? So like both internal teams as well as external teams and things like that. How big's the team? What sort of things do you do to foster a positive environment and a proactive environment?
Yeah, so we're now a headcount of 17, and then we have 2 people working with us on secondment, which I think will become increasingly common for us. And I think we've got plans to probably go up again by another few people in the next financial year. So we'll probably settle at around 20 sort of permanent employees, and we'll often have 1 or 2 people who are seconded in some way, or some sort of that arrangement going on. And then sort of in terms of creating the best environment, I suppose it's a case of, from my perspective, can we recruit as diversely as possible?
Yeah.
In every sense of the word, because then we're going to have we're going to have less groupthink. We're going to have a variety of views and lived experiences and opinions at the table, which are going to help us make better decisions and be more impactful. If we can do that from the outset, I think that's really important. And then it's a case of creating an environment in which people feel, to the extent they wish to be, they can be themselves.
Okay.
Because then they're more comfortable, they're more like, and if they're able to enjoy their work, in my opinion, they're more likely to do it well and find it more rewarding. So that's what we're trying to do, I suppose, is create an environment where people can, to the extent they wish to be, they can be themselves. Sometimes it helps to leave half yourself at home or not, but if we can create that environment, we get the best out of people. And if we've, in the first instance, recruited a diverse, varied selection of people from across a range of sectors, we're going to make better decisions. We're going to come up with more creative solutions.
So absolutely, diverse teams, that brings a whole host of benefits because of that diversity, different thinking, different ideas and things like that. It does also bring some challenges around that sort of internal communication and team environment. What sort of things are you doing to sort of make sure you keep that positive team aligned to your goals, aligned to your purpose?
Yeah, it's a really good point, because in a way we should be having a little bit more disagreement and a few more sparks flying at times, if we're really kind of.
Sometimes it's healthy, isn't it, having that debate?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you sort of fall back on, okay, where are we trying to get to? Where's the vision, the bit we all agree on in those moments? I think there's a set of kind of principles that everyone agrees to behind it about how we treat each other, frankly, and how we're willing, what behaviours we're willing to accept or not accept. So that kind of self-governs, I suppose, to a certain degree.
Everybody knows where they stand and what's expected.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that kind of helps just give it a bit of shape. So even if actually there is a disagreement about something, it's not a personal thing. Actually, it's helping us hopefully get to a better place. And as long as we're doing that in a way that's respectful, and then that's okay.
Yeah, very good, very good. So that fine balance, isn't it, between creativity and not stifling it too much with too much rules, but keeping some boundaries in. Yeah, very good. In terms of your time, then clearly, there's a lot going on. How do you manage your time as a business leader and family life and things like that?
Not always as well as I probably should do.
There's a common trait, don't worry.
And I think it's because I see it. My role is much more like, I really care about our cause. We're doing, and therefore I think there's a blurry line between work and home, or work and personal life, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Wherever I go, I'm going to see things that affect our work, because it's about how society works and about how streets are designed or how sport work. They're going to see it, so there is always going to be that slightly blurry line. I don't mind that too much. I think the flexibility that we offer really helps, really helps, so that you can kind of, everybody has a dentist appointment or needs to pick a child up from school from time to time, or has care and responsibility. That goes a long way, I think, to making that work. And then also just philosophically deciding what is important. As important as we think our jobs are, we do have loved ones, dependents, or whatever it might be, and we do need to just occasionally remind ourselves of that actually the email that feels really important isn't actually that important.
Yeah.
And so there's a bit of a philosophical thing behind it, but certainly things like flexible working and do allow you to sort of like fit the two things together without sort of them competing necessarily.
Yeah, I guess it's sort of keeping in mind that aligning personal goals and objectives with business goals and objectives, and making sure that it's not too weighted in one area, isn't it? I think you're right. That work-life balance thing is kind of like it's too clear cut, isn't it? It's like the 9 to 5, go home, and there's no. Whereas these days, it's more about work-life integration and.
Yeah, I think so, and especially if there's you believe in the cause or the purpose of what you're doing, then that's naturally going to blur to some extent. Obviously, you need to put sensible boundaries in place to keep fresh in both places. But actually, I think that that blur is, especially in a charitable world, a social enterprise, or in fact, if anybody's a founder of a business, they're going to care about it quite deeply.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that line can blur, but I think there's certain boundaries you can afford yourself that kind of make that a little bit easier.
Yeah, very true. And what about the future? What's the sort of future look like? Are there any sort of exciting plans coming up? Where are you going?
So at the moment, I guess it's there's one internal and one more macro, I suppose. At the moment, we're looking at our operating model to try and make sure that we are making the best decisions, we're making the most impact. I'm quite excited about making sure we've got all the right capacity in the right places, and colleagues are supported to do their work with as few impediments as possible, I suppose. And then on a bigger scale, I guess we're always trying to get to a point where we're trying to effectively achieve a paradise utopia world where people in Oxfordshire, regardless of where they're born, who they are, what their background is, have access to physical activity in a way that suits them. So that's always the thing that makes it worth getting out of bed in the morning, I think. But that's the big thing we're always trying to get at, is can we get to that vision of a transformed Oxfordshire where things are radically different and it's simply a fairer society, I suppose.
Yeah, exciting. Certainly something, is a worthy cause. You clearly are very passionate about it. So it'd be interesting to keep in touch and watch the progress. Josh Lenthall, thank you very much for sharing your insights and experience with us. It's been great to hear them. Before I wrap up, where can our listeners go to find out a little bit more about Active Oxfordshire and what you're doing at the moment?
Sure. So our website's activeoxfordshire.org. You can also find us on LinkedIn and Blue Sky as well. You'll be able to find us in all of those places.
Very good. Thank you, Josh. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.